Hi there everyone, happy Saturday. I am King 5, meteorologist Adam Claybon. The heat did start to turn up a little more today. We got a little bit of a breeze here into the evening, but today wasn't the highest heat that we're going to see. That comes in tomorrow and Monday, and both of those days we do have first alert days out because of that, and we have heat advisories too that we're going to tell you about where the National Weather Service has issued those for. Now, it's not going to include everybody, so we're going to get into exactly where those spots are, talk about who gets to see some of the highest heat with this event, and also go on into what's happening as we go later on into next week, and things do begin to cool back down. It's going to be a drastic change from what we're going to see here over the next couple of days. But wanted to show you what's all going on and how this is all coming together, and that's because, well, we're heating our areas here around more Puget Sound up a bit more than what we're seeing outside of there. Why is that? Because we have the urban heat island effect. And what is that exactly? Well, that's when you have a bunch of concrete within some of these larger cities absorb more radiation from the sun, and it keeps it into that concrete itself. So that's why things around more of the larger cities do tend to be a bit hotter than what you're going to see where we have less of that vegetation around. Now, as we head into the night, because we do absorb a lot of that radiation into a lot of the concretes, well, not as much of it gets back into outer space when we usually see that radiate and make its way back out into outer space. So because of that, we're going to keep things a bit warmer, and those overnight lows are not going to be quite as low as where they normally would be. Now, highs today were a bit warmer here around the Kitsap Peninsula, parts of Puget Sound. Outside of there, a little more comfortable around areas such as Everett, over towards the west, over the Olympic Peninsula, especially closer to the coast. Big difference, though, what you see there in Quileute and Hoquiam, 75 and 65. We're going to show you exactly why that has happened here today, and also talk about how things are expected to cool down a bit more as we head into the next couple of days earlier out there towards the coast than what we're going to see over here around parts of Puget Sound. So first alert days for tomorrow and also heading into Monday. Temperatures are going to be about 10 to maybe 20 degrees above where they should normally be for this time of the year. And we're going to have some of those warm nights too, where it's going to be a bit more difficult and uncomfortable to sleep. Those of us trying to beat the heat, if you're heading out to the water, be careful. Cold water risks are around, and that's because we still have these very chilly bodies of water because we're still kind of early into the summer season, and a lot of our waters, especially Puget Sound, don't even warm up a whole lot here through the course of the summer. So you don't want that cold body or that cold water shock to impact you. And where exactly are we expecting some of the highest heat? Puget Sound, and especially across parts of more of South Sound, where we see the highest chances of maybe getting up into the 90s in those locations. Here's your 7-day forecast. You can see that we're calling for first alert days on Sunday and Monday. Those are when we're seeing highs in the mid to upper 80s, approaching the 90-degree mark, and then starting to come back down. A little bit of a cool down by Tuesday, more of one coming in by Wednesday through next Saturday. You can see highs only in the 60s at that point. Check what's happening on our satellite imagery, and this is the reason why we are seeing things quite a bit cooler around more of the south coast as opposed to what's happening across the north coast. You see the direction of this little feature that's moving on through. It's heading south, but at the same time, it's like an area of low pressure. You can see that spin and that curvature in the atmosphere, and winds are actually coming in that direction off of the water to the south coast while coming more off of the coast and out in that direction towards the west across parts of the north coast. You'll see how that is really impacting our temperatures, and just showed you the highs, but even as we speak right now, things are a bit different there. Here's a look at our graphics and what we are seeing out this way around Westport. Gorgeous skies out there. You can see off into the distance that marine layer, that's going to try to come back in as we head on into this evening, heading into the night. Looks like a few people trying to get out and enjoy the north coast right here, and you can see the marine layer not too far away also. Again, the coast shouldn't be really impacted with any of this high heat at all. We're going to keep highs generally in the 70s out that way. Up this way around Paulsville, not really expecting things to get too hot either for us here, but down this way around Tacoma, you better believe it. Tomorrow we'll be back up maybe even closer to the 90-degree mark, maybe just staying just shy, but looks pretty, right? A lot of clear skies, beautiful blue skies out there. And from our Queen Anne camera here in Seattle, more the same as well. As temperatures still hold on into more the lower 80s here as we head into the earlier part of your Saturday evening. We'll keep skies clear. Not going to drop a whole lot though as far as temperatures. Again, we're going to lock in a lot of that radiation and that heat energy into the concrete around some of these larger cities. So lower 60s, upper 50s, that's the best we can do really for some of those overnight lows. Temperature change from yesterday. quite the difference out towards the north coast. Again, a little more of that offshore push has helped us to get up into more of the upper 70s there, while farther to the east, not a huge difference, but we are slightly warmer as that air mass continues to modify, and that area of low pressure is actually high pressure, is beginning to move closer to the region. Speaking of temperatures, this is where we sit right now. 78 in Tacoma, 82 as of about the 7 o'clock hour for you there in Puyallup, 80 in Seattle, and then a bit cooler as you get up even as close as Everett, only at 73, 74 in Bellingham, and off towards the south coast, 65 degrees. If you're trying to beat the heat, and that's where you need to head. All right, so here's radar. Things completely quiet as we have this area of high pressure now scooting its way a little closer, and that's what's really helping to drive all of the warm up that we're seeing here as we head on through these next few days. Closer look at some of those advisories that are going to be out for us starting up tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. These are the areas that will be impacted here around Puget Sound, the Kitsap Peninsula, more of South Sound. You can see Mason County also included in that, at least more of the lower terrain there as you get closer to the Kitsap Peninsula. And then, yeah, that does extend a little farther north across areas of Snohomish County, but at the same time, too, you'll see that the foothill communities are more the spots that we see the majority of the heating there, where we could see some of those highs, mainly in the mid to upper 80s, maybe even approaching the 90-degree mark, and that continues up into the foothill communities for Skagit and Whatcom counties as well. Closer to the water you are, you're actually going to be okay. Again, more 70s, maybe sneaking up into the 80s for afternoon highs, and that heads its way all the way down the I-5 corridor, heading closer to the Oregon state line. All right, let's continue on to talk about the next few days, because tomorrow and Monday will be our hottest days, highs reaching those mid-80s. You can see the lows, too, only dropping into the upper 50s and the lower 60s. A little more of a cool down, some relief on Tuesday, but much more to come as we head later on into the day on Wednesday. All right, let's speak about temperatures tonight, because they will be a bit more comfortable in comparison to what we're seeing the next few nights. Some lower 50s in some of the outside areas like around Shelton. The coast definitely cooling down a bit more. Up there around Bellingham, we're cooling down to 52 degrees. Outside of there, though, especially into some of these larger cities, expect maybe even some lower 60s only for overnight lows. And then we head into the day tomorrow, and you can see those highs getting up there around 79 in Bellingham, 80 in Port Townsend, but then the real heat is around the Kitsap Peninsula, and where we have those advisories across Puget Sound, upper 80s and lower 90s across some of those spots. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and take a closer look at some of these highs across the region. We're going to go up this way around parts of Northwest Interior. You can see Orcas Island up to 76, Anacortes getting up to 74, Bellingham up to 79, but you head into the foothill communities up around Lake Kavanaugh and Cedro Woolley. That's where we see more of the mid to upper 80s, and that's where we have those heat advisories in effect for tomorrow. Then you can see, again, foothill communities here around Snohomish County dealing with a lot more of the heat, mid to upper 80s, approaching 90 around Oso and Gold Bar. Darrington probably getting up to 92 degrees, while you head closer to the water, Camino, Whidbey Island in the 70s, lower 80s around Everett and in Linwood, and then you head just south of there and we start to crank the heat up just a bit more here, King County as well as the Kitsap Peninsula. Highs in the mid to upper 80s here. The farther you go east into the foothills, that's where you get closer to the 90-degree mark, Maple Valley. Auburn up to 90 degrees, 92 possible head into Puyallup, and then the lower 90s around Yale, Tenino, and in Olympia. You continue south there, getting closer to Centralia, Castle Rock, Longview, 92, 94 degrees. The coast, we get that cool down there. That's a big change from what we're going to see. So if you are, again, trying to get away from some of this higher heat and you can get out to the coast, that's where you need to get to. Highs only in the 60s out there. Tulips, though, just a bit off to the east, getting up to 82 degrees. 76 in Hoquiam, Elma getting up to 90 degrees. Forecast as we head on into the day on Monday. Going to be slightly cooler. We do see the numbers come down by about 2 to 3, maybe 4 degrees, but still in the same spots. Going to be really warm. Mid to upper 80s. Tacoma up to 84, 88 in Puyallup. 60s only expected out towards the coast again. Up there around more the north coast of the Olympic Peninsula, Clallam County for Port Angeles, Sequim, Port Townsend, low to mid 70s expected for us there, and then 73 in Orcas Island, 75 expected as you head up towards Bellingham. All right, your forecast here as we head on into the latter part of the week. Check out the changes. We do start to go from more of the lower to mid 80s down into the low 70s by Wednesday. Averages at 69. we're cooler than average starting up on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And that is going to be more of a pattern shift for us. Again, I think that's a little more of what we see heading into the middle part of the month of June. Just highs probably staying more so around the 60s for some of those afternoon numbers. So if you're not a big fan of this heat, you don't have to wait too much longer. We're going to see things change up for us quite soon, and it is going to stay that way. Something though I wanted to remind you about, if you are going to be just using fire or being around fire or doing anything with fire here over these next couple of days, we do still have a lot of dry vegetation, dry soil here across the region. So the fire danger is still going to be something that we want to be mindful of. Moderate drought, so we're not into any of those severe or extreme categories as of yet, but we are just wanting to be mindful and wanting to be careful of using fire here when we do have conditions like this here that are moving on through. Hopefully later on into the week, with some of those cooler temperatures, we'll at least get a little rain to come from some of the skies. But for right now, things are staying quite dry for us here across western Washington. All right, let's talk about the next 7 days again, because we're going to see the couple of hot days on Sunday and Monday, first alert days for those reasons. Then the numbers start to come back down as we head on into Tuesday. Wednesday and beyond is when we start to get closer, if not cooler than average, as we head much deeper on into the week. So keep it in mind, again, first alert days, Sunday and Monday. We have the heat advisories on those days as well, starting up at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning and lasting until 10 p.m. on Monday evening. All right, everyone, try to stay cool, stay safe, and also make sure to still try to enjoy as much of your beautiful weekend that's going to be about and ahead of you here for the next day or so. All right, we'll talk to you soon. Have a good one.